Good afternoon and welcome back to Girded with Truth. Thank you so much for joining us today as we continue our series, Time to Move On. Today we're talking about the fear of the future. Genesis chapter 19 verses 15 to 21 says, "And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto him, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold, now thy servant had found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold now, this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, and I will not overthrow this city, for the which thou hast spoken. So here, God is ready to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, for their sin have been very great. It has been grievous against the Lord. And he decided that he would send a word to Lot to let Lot know that he was ready to destroy that place. And Lot was to leave there. So the Lord sent an angel to Lot in order to let him know, hey, Sodom and Gomorrah is going to be destroyed, and I have sent salvation to you today, so go to the mountain. So God is telling Lot here, it's time to move on. But Lot here is afraid of the future. The angel told him to go to the mountain. But Lot said, no, let me settle in this little village here because I'm afraid to go to the mountain. And the angel said, okay, because you have spoken to me like this, because God has been merciful to you, I will allow you in this thing. Lot was afraid to head into his future. He was afraid of what his future will look like because God was sending him to the mountain. But he has been dwelling in Sodom and Gomorrah so long that he has been in this place. So when God is telling him time to move on, he looks at what the future might look like and he becomes afraid. So Lot is afraid of his future. He's afraid of what God says his future would be. Because if we are being honest with ourselves, not every time the Lord says, this is what your future looks like, we run into it. Sometimes we delay, sometimes we wait, sometimes we don't even believe it because it seems impossible. But God is telling Lot, go to the mountain, and Lot decides to bargain with God to tell him, let me just settle in this little village and not go quite to the mountain. So Lot has settled in this in-between place. He's not quite in Sodom and Gomorrah, but he's also not quite where God sends him. Even though God is saying it's time to move on. Because if we are being honest, sometimes we haven't quite let go of what our past is, but we haven't quite grabbed hold of what the future looks like either. And that leaves us in an in-between place. But God is saying, time to let go of the past. Time to move on and grab hold of the future. Do not allow the fear of the future to keep you in the past or even in that in-between place. Instead, head towards the future God has given to you, because God is ready to send you on the mountaintop. He is ready to place you on a mountain. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. He is ready to make you a light to the earth and salt in the earth. And in order to do that, you have to let go of what was to grab hold of what will be. You have to move on. God is saying it's time to move on. Genesis chapter 19 verses 24 to 30 says, Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. So here we are seeing Lot being afraid of what his future might look like. God destroys Sodom and Gomorrah because that is what he sent the angel to do, rescue Lot before the destruction would come upon the place, because God remembered Abraham, because he had a covenant with Abraham, and he knew in order to keep that covenant with Abraham, he needed to protect Lot. So Lot was saved because God remembered Abraham. Now, the angel of the Lord told Lot, his wife, and his daughters not to look back behind them. Did he do that because he didn't want them to see the destruction? No, he did that because in their heart they needed to disconnect from what was. They needed to let go of the pain of the past, like we talked about yesterday. They needed to let go of the past in order to head towards the future. But the moment the wife turned around, she felt like she needed to be there. She needed something that her past entailed. But God was saying, no, it's time to move on. He was saying, do not have fear towards the future, but go towards it in faith. And Lot's wife turned around, a lot like Eve, going after the fruit that God said not to go after. The instruction is what was important to follow. It wasn't about turning to the left, turning to the right, turning around, or eating what was not right. It was about obedience. It was about obeying God when he said it, because when you obey God, you walk in faith and your future is sure. And Lot's wife became a pillar of salt. Lot, seeing his own wife becoming a pillar of salt right in front of his eyes, that would make anyone develop fear. But even in the midst of loss, you have to be able to hold on to what God says and head towards it. You cannot delay, you cannot linger, you cannot wait, you cannot consider what is happening. Instead, you need to focus on what God says and do it. It also said that Lot bargained for this place in Zoar, and he bargained with the angel, but yet still he could not dwell in the city because he was in this in-between place. And sometimes when you're in an in-between place, God discomforts you so that you will head into the place that he really does have for you. And if you are feeling discomforted today, it means that you are somewhere that God is calling you out of. But he's calling you to what's next. He's calling you to your future. So Lot was in this in-between place. He was in Zoar, but he could not dwell there because he was discomforted. And he went into a cave. A cave speaks about isolation, but did God tell Lot to go in a cave? No, he told him to go in a mountain. So he listened to what God said, but he didn't obey what God said. A cave is part of a mountain. So he went into this place where he think he could operate, where he think he could walk in, where he think he could grab hold of, because he looked at it in his own mind, through his own eyes. But God was saying, no, look at it through my eyes and go to the mountain. So he went into the cave, which was a part of the mountain, but what he did was isolate himself in a place that God did not have for him. If he had gone to the mountain, he would have lived an overcoming and abundant life, because that is what God had for him. So he did what he wanted to do based on what God said, but he did not fully obey what God was telling him to do. So if you are in that place where you are not quite in disobedience, but you are not quite in obedience either, then you are still being disobedient, because God's instruction requires full obedience. And in order to get onto the mountaintop that God has designed for you, you need to walk in complete obedience to what God is saying. Do not let the fear of the future direct where you go, where you stop, where you dwell. Instead, obey God's voice completely and get into your future. Walk into your destiny. This is speaking about the fear of the future. But God is saying today, walk into your future with faith and assurance, knowing that He has led you, He has guided you, He has directed you into the place He has for you, and there is no turning back. He will not leave you or forsake you, but He will continue to lead you into all truth. This is Girded with Truth. I'm Antonia speaking, and we will continue this series tomorrow, please God. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.